This is Part 3, Episode 9. Green extended to the limits of one's vision above the lush woodlands. As a gentle breeze brushed past, green waves swept out with a crashing sound, a truly magnificent sight. However, the atmosphere above the lush woodlands seemed to have frozen. 10 figures silently stood above the woodlands, their ice-cold eyes locked onto a figure in front of them. There was a playful and sadistic glow in their eyes, like those of a cat stalking a mouse. Hee, from your words, it seems like you were deliberately waiting for us. One of the 10 figures suddenly released an odd laughter while mockingly staring at Lin Dong. The words uttered by the former had almost caused them to lose control and break out into laughter. Looks like this period of hunting had caused this unlucky fellow to lose his mind. Lin Dong smiled, his eyes slowly scanning the 10 figures before pausing at Chen Mu and a figure behind him. With his sharp mental energy senses, he could perceive a faint dangerous sensation from that man's body. This sensation was even more intense than Chen Mu's. The Devil Cliff Empire is powerful indeed. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed a little, but he did not panic at all. Evidently, he had long anticipated such a situation. Lin Dong, I have already told you, one should know his limits. You are entirely responsible for the predicament that you are in today. Chen Mu's eyes coldly stared at Lin Dong with an unconcealable killing intent churning within them. Surrender the mysterious ancient key, and I will leave you with a whole corpse. No one has ever managed to survive after killing someone from our Devil Cliff Empire. You are no exception. Chen Mu stretched out his palm and declared in an indifferent manner. His words gave no options for Lin Dong to talk himself out of this predicament. Evidently, they were bent on killing Lin Dong. Lin Dong smiled as he gazed at Chen Mu before suddenly asking, "So, how many Nirvana pills do you guys have?" Nonetheless, it must be said that Lin Dong's question was truly a loaded one. For a while, even Chen Mu was stunned. However, he seemed to understand that the hidden intention behind Lin Dong's words were not friendly. Immediately, his expression turned grim. I am about to attack Nirvana stage, and I require quite a bit of Nirvana pills. Lin Dong gently smiled as he said. Though he did not further elaborate, when he saw Chen Mu and the rest's expressions change, he guessed that they have also understood what he meant. Ha, what an interesting kid. However, someone like you is destined to die young. I have 150,000 Nirvana pills with me. If you believe that you are capable enough, you can try to take it. The one who spoke this time around was a man standing behind Chen Mu with triangular pupils. His pupils gently shrunk as he stared at Lin Dong, while a fake smile hung on his smile. This was actually the first time he saw someone trying to target their Devil Cliff Empire. 150,000. You are quite a fat sheep. Lin Dong chuckled. However, when they saw him chuckle, the elite Devil Cliff Empire practitioners immediately shook his head. All of them assumed that fellow had probably gone senile. Chen Mu, take care of the problem that you left behind. The rest of you will guard this area. I do not want to see any unforeseen accidents occur today. That man with triangular pupils glanced at Lin Dong, and it seemed like he was not interested in talking with a mentally unstable person. Immediately, he waved his hand as he casually said, "Yes, Senior Lei Shi." When they heard his words, the other elite Devil Cliff Empire's practitioner instantly responded. Following which, all of them dashed them, before they formed a defensive formation and trapped Lin Dong within. Thanks to their formation, it was very difficult for Lin Dong to escape. Chen Mu sucked in a deep breath of air, before his expression instantly darkened. Then, he slowly walked forth, while his voice sounded out, "Lin Dong, you took me by surprise when you advanced to Heavenly Symbol Master. However, if you believe that is sufficient to allow you to fight with my Devil Cliff Empire, let me tell you this, you are simply too naive. As the situation stands, even if you kneel down and surrender the mysterious ancient key, you must pay a price for challenging and disrespecting my Devil Cliff Empire. Hence, you must die." Chen Mu suddenly gripped his palm, before a potent killing intent gushed out from his eyes. At the same time, his formidable Yuan power shockwaves also flooded forth. Though they were both Nirvana stage practitioners, Chen Mu's strength was evidently several times more powerful than Li Pan. Savage Yuan power shockwaves swept forth as Chen Mu's figure flashed. Following which, his figure suddenly surged, before a blurry figure emerged. However, his figure had already appeared behind Lin Dong, just like a phantom. Then, Yuan power lightning quick concentrated on his palm, before he viciously slammed it against Lin Dong's scalp without the slightest shred of mercy. Bang! However, Chen Mu's attack did not land on Lin Dong's body. That was because while his attack was half an inch away from his scalp, a formidable mental energy gushed out and formed a barrier, which managed to deflect that attack. When he saw that his attack had been stopped, Chen Mu was not surprised. Promptly, he flipped his palm, before Yuan power gathered together just like a hurricane. Finally, he punched out. Mountain-breaking seal. A savage knuckle seal viciously slammed against that mental energy barrier in a domineering fashion. Due to that punch, that barrier was directly blown apart. However, the instant his knuckle seal tore apart that mental energy barrier, a cold glint suddenly appeared from below. However, it did not target the fist, but instead, it flew at a peculiar trajectory towards Chen Mu's throat. Snort. When he saw Lin Dong's futile struggle, Chen Mu coldly snorted. Using the back of his palm, his formidable strength solemnly slammed against that cold glint, before he managed to blow it away. When he saw his actions, Lin Dong's eyes narrowed. With a flick of his mind, devouring force gushed out before it directly wrapped around his heavenly crocodile bone spear. In this instance, his originally white bone spear suddenly transformed into an extremely dark color. Bang! Chen Mu's steel-like palms gripped on that enraged bone spear. However, that bone spear did not retreat as he had expected. Instead, a peculiar suction force erupted from that bone spear. Thanks to that suction force, all the Yuan power wrapped around his body began to stealthily disappear. This peculiar sight caused Chen Mu's pupils to gently shrink. Instantly, he tried to escape that suction force as he quickly retreated. It seems like those 500,000 nirvana pills are wasted on you. When he saw Chen Mu suddenly retreat, Lin Dong laughed heartily. Promptly, a cold glow gushed into his eyes, while a formidable mental energy violently gushed out from his Nirvana palace. Immediately, storm clouds began to gather in the sky, while thunder and lightning cackled amidst the clouds. Chen Mu's expression was grim. When he saw that mysterious phenomenon that was occurring, he knew that Lin Dong was trying to use his mental energy to control the Yuan power between heaven and earth. Immediately, he quickly took a step forward, while his footsteps suddenly became peculiar. Evidently, this was a rather powerful martial arts. His footsteps was peculiar. As Chen Mu's body squirmed, he quickly appeared in front of Lin Dong. Following which, his arms were just like blades, as savage Yuan power gathered on them. Faintly, an extremely formidable shockwave emerged from it. Extreme giant Yuan blade. Chen Mu's eyes were cold as he violently swung his arm. Following which, all the air below his arms was seemingly torn apart, while a several meters wide ditch was directly torn in the lush woodlands beneath. In front of me, you don't even have the time to activate the Yuan power between heaven and earth. Get ready to die. Chen Mu grinned. His blade-like arms were extremely quick and vicious. Even Lin Dong could only see a formidable glint flash across his eyes, before that formidable blade wind, which could severely wound a Nirvana stage practitioner, landed on Lin Dong's body. The instant he made contact, a ripping noise did not sound out as he expected. Instead, a clear metallic noise sounded out. Following which, Chen Mu's pupils violently shrunk, when he saw that there was a peculiar black glow beneath Lin Dong's skin. As that black glow gushed out, it actually transformed into a black vest on Lin Dong's body. Moreover, the instant that formidable blade wind touched that black vest, it was just like tossing a rock into a sea, as it caused no impact at all. However, what really caused Chen Mu's expression to change was an extremely powerful suction force that actually erupted from that black vest. Thanks to that suction force, all the Yuan power in his body began to disappear quickly, while they continuously gushed into Lin Dong's body. That kid is quite strange. This thought flashed across Chen Mu's mind. Promptly, all the hair on his body stood up. However, just as he was about to quickly retreat, a cold smile appeared on Lin Dong's face. Boom. In the sky, lightning and thunder rumbled, before all the lightning bolts quickly gathered together. Instantly, they transformed into a giant lightning palm. However, this lightning was not silver in color, but it was pitch black instead. Faintly, a heart-palpitating sensation emerged. Devouring lightning palm. A deep roar sounded out in Lin Dong's heart. Promptly, that black lightning palm suddenly swept forth. Following which, under the bewildered stares from the Devil Cliff Empire's practitioners, it viciously slammed against Chen Mu, who had no time to flee. Instantly, a black lightning glow swept forth in this lush woodlands. Standing nearby, Lei Shi's expression slowly darkened as he stared at that lightning glow, a deafening earth-shattering noise suddenly sounded out above the lush woodlands, before a black lightning halo quickly swept forth at an alarming speed. Everywhere the lighting halo brushed past, the lush woodlands would quickly turn charred, an extremely shocking sight. Bang! As that lightning halo spread forth, a hideous-looking figure suddenly shot out from within before he tore through the vast woodlands. Along the way, he directly tore a near 100-meter ditch, and caused countless large trees to be directly blown away. The figure that shot out finally managed to forcefully stabilize himself. After he stabilized his body gently trembled, before wisps of black smoke arose from his back. In fact, even his aura seemed to have dimmed down. Evidently, he was severely wounded. While his body trembled, a deathly pale color emerged on his face, before he involuntarily vomited out a mouthful of fresh blood. Following which, he was still in shock as he lifted his head. As he stared at that figure wearing a black vest, hovering above the woodlands, it was obvious that he did not expect that Lin Dong's attack was actually this savage. He knew that the latter had advanced to Heavenly Symbol Master. However, even though Heavenly Symbol Masters can control the Yuan power between heaven and earth, they should not be so powerful. Furthermore, the instant he was attacked, he could clearly feel that some of the Yuan power inside his body had mysteriously disappeared, and this undoubtedly caused his existing injuries to worsen. As that widespread lightning glow gradually dissipated, the surrounding elite Devil Cliff Empire practitioners stared at a hideous-looking Chen Mu, before their pupils suddenly shrunk. Promptly, all of them sucked in a breath of cold air. All of them were keenly aware of Chen Mu's strength, and they had never expected him to wound up in such a sorry state. Therefore, when they turned to look at that surrounded young man, their eyes did not have a mocking tinge like before. This time around, if they were not seriously prepared, the outcome may once again exceed their expectations. After both of them glanced at one another, all of them turned to look at that man with triangular pupils. Under the attention from the crowd, that man named Lei Shi shifted his attention, before he turned to look at Lin Dong. Following which, his coarse voice sounded out, "These days, there are many people who pretend to be pigs in order to eat tigers. I can't figure out how a practitioner, who recently advanced to Heavenly Symbol Master, can actually control such a powerful natural force." Lin Dong glanced at him before he casually said, "I am not pretending to be a pig to eat tigers. It is because your Devil Cliff Empire is too arrogant. Even though you guys are powerful, all of you hardly amount to anything compared to the ancient battlefield. In the future, you will encounter other similar incidents. Hence, there is no need to be this surprised." "Ha ha, that I must admit." Lei Shen gently smiled. He was keenly aware that there were many other formidable empires in the ancient battlefield, and some of them were even more powerful than them. In the ancient battlefield, there are many empires and powerful practitioners that our Devil Cliff Empire must be wary of. However, you are not one of them. Lin Dong ignored him as he lazily said, "You should be the next one making a move, right? I wonder how many Nirvana pills you used when you attacked Nirvana stage." "Lin Dong, don't be too arrogant. I haven't lost yet." Below him, another figure suddenly shot out, before a hideous-looking Chen Mu emerged and glared venomously at him. His deep growl obviously indicated that he still refused to believe that he had actually lost to Lin Dong. Previously, when he first met Lin Dong, the latter had to rely on his blood-soul puppet in order to fight against him. However, in less than 2 months' time, the latter had actually managed to defeat him. This was undoubtedly a huge blow for Chen Mu. Lin Dong casually glanced at Chen Mu. His previous attack was extremely powerful, and that fellow is merely putting on a strong front. Therefore, if he really dared to attack him again, Lin Dong would not mind directly killing him. "Chen Mu, you are no match for him. Join Li Li and the rest and set up the formation. I will personally handle him." Just as Chen Mu's eyes turned blood red, standing behind him, Lei Shi casually spoke. When he heard Lei Shi's words, Chen Mu tightly clenched his fist while he stared venomously at Lin Dong. However, in the end, he chose to obey his instructions. As his figure flashed, he dragged his heavily wounded body before he quickly backed off. Then, he joined the 8 of them in order to set up a peculiar formation. Meanwhile, the person right in the middle of the formation was actually Lin Dong. "Originally, we did not plan to use this formation. However, your performance is simply too surprising. Furthermore, I typically do not enjoy taking excessive risks. If we fail to accomplish anything after so many of us have came, we will not have the guts to return." Lei Shi's hands were behind his back. His pupils stared right at Lin Dong, while an icy-cold aura faintly emerged from his body. The number of nirvana pills used to attack nirvana stage only serves as a gauge among practitioners who have yet to pass through any nirvana tribulations. Unfortunately for you, I have attempted to attack a nirvana tribulation 2 months ago. When he heard his words, Lin Dong's pupils suddenly shrunk, before he stared right at this man, called Lei Shi. Nirvana tribulation is the most important checkpoint for any nirvana stage practitioners. Only when one survives a nirvana tribulation can one add an additional title to his title, 1 yuan. The difference between 1 yuan nirvana stage and ordinary nirvana stage is hardly insignificant. Nirvana stage has a total of 9 stages. That was to say, each time one survived a nirvana tribulation, one's strength would surge, and they cannot be spoken in the same breath as those who haven't. Right now, Lin Dong had recently advanced to Heavenly Symbol Master. Furthermore, thanks to his ancestral devouring symbol, he was able to activate the yuan power between heaven and earth in order to defeat a powerful nirvana stage practitioner like Chen Mu. However, if he encountered a practitioner who had survived a nirvana tribulation, he would likely falter. Precisely because of this, when Lin Dong heard that Lei Shi had actually touched this nirvana tribulation, which caused most nirvana stage practitioners to salivate and fear, his heart was in shock. These Devil Cliff Empire practitioners are truly skilled. After he gently sighed inside his heart, Lin Dong retracted his stare before he turned to Lei Shi and smiled and said, "However, I believe that you should have failed." A nirvana tribulation was just like a destructive flame for nirvana stage practitioners. If one successfully survived through it, one would undergo a major metamorphosis, just like one was reborn. However, if one failed to pass through, some lucky ones may still live, while most of them would directly lose their lives. That is the reason why most nirvana stage practitioners loved and feared the nirvana tribulation. It was the perfect way for them to strengthen themselves. However, in order to go through with it, one had to risk one's life. Lin Dong was clearly aware just how powerful a nirvana stage practitioner became after surviving a nirvana tribulation. Standing in front of him, even though Lei Shi was quite powerful, he still seemed somewhat lacking. When he heard Lin Dong's words, Lei Shi's eyes narrowed, while his expression turned slightly grim. It seems like Lin Dong's words had hit where it hurt the most. After all, he was indeed unsuccessful when he tried to attack a nirvana tribulation. Nonetheless, he was fortunate enough to keep his life. Even though I did not successfully pass through, I have gained some benefits as well, and it should be more than enough to take care of you. Lei Shi was evidently irritated when he was forced to talk about this topic. In fact, even a cold glint slowly flowed in his triangular pupils. "Chen Mu, it's time to make a move." When they heard Lei Shi's voice, a savage glint flashed across Chen Mu and the rest's eyes. Following which, countless formidable yuan power glowing columns suddenly shot out, before all of them crisscrossed. Faintly, they formed into a glowing net that enveloped this entire domain. "Today, you shall have nowhere to run." At a distance away, Lei Shi's finger suddenly pointed at Lin Dong. Promptly, his expression turned grim, before he suddenly took a step forward. Following which, the air beneath suddenly exploded, before his figure disappeared in a peculiar fashion. "He is really fast." Lin Dong's pupils gently shrunk. Once Lei Shi made a move, it immediately showcased the difference between him and Chen Mu. In fact, even an endangered sensation arose in Lin Dong's heart. Even though Lei Shi did not successfully survive a nirvana tribulation, he was still a man who had experienced it once before. Therefore, his strength naturally far exceeds that of any ordinary nirvana stage practitioner. As his mental energy slowly spread out, in the next instance, Lin Dong's body suddenly sidestepped. Boom! Just as his body sidestepped, a cold and venomous claw suddenly appeared behind his back, before it brushed past his shoulder. That claw-like hand vibrated at a high frequency, while it held an alarming killing force. A heavenly symbol master indeed. After his attack failed, standing behind Lin Dong, Lei Shi gently smiled. Promptly, he jerked his arm before his arm actually began to grow in a peculiar fashion. Following which, he waved his arm, before he solidly slammed his arm against Lin Dong's chest. Boom! A deep noise echoed out, while all the surrounding air was forcefully blown apart. In fact, even Lin Dong was forced to retreat several steps. As he sensed that painful sensation in his chest, his expression gradually turned solemn. It seems like Lei Shi was going to be a tricky foe. Huh! It is time to collect the net that they have laid down. When he saw that Lin Dong did not suffer much injuries even after he forcefully withstood his attack, Lei Shi gasped in shock. Even if this attack landed on a Nirvana stage practitioner, who possessed Nirvana golden body, the latter would definitely be wounded. However, Lin Dong was able to seemingly ignore it. Is it because of that black vest? Lei Shi's eyes narrowed as he glanced at that peculiar black vest on Lin Dong's body. Promptly, he licked his lips, while a bloodthirsty glint flashed across his eyes. I am curious to see how many attacks your black vest can withstand. Regardless of what tricks you have, the outcome will not change. Lei Shi grinned venomously. Promptly, his body suddenly shot out, before an alarming shockwave swiveled around his body. Lin Dong glanced at a rapidly approaching Lei Shi, before he looked at that formation that was trapping him. Following which, a cold grin emerged on his face, before he softly said, "That may not be true." A densely packed net of light spread out in the sky. Like a sturdy prison, it completely sealed off a several hundred kilometers radius. This formation was rather spectacular. Looks like the Devil Cliff Empire had came prepared this time. Bang bang. As the net of light spread, two figures crisscrossed at lightning-like speed above the lush woodlands. Terrifying energy waves erupted, causing a verdant tide sweep across the sea of green below. In the end, the tide was stopped by the descending light net. Clearly, this formation was reasonably strong. Hence, no matter how fierce the battle between these two figures was, the area beyond the glowing net remained as calm as still water. Chen Mu spitefully looked at the figure within the glowing net. Lin Dong's performance had certainly exceeded his expectations. However, no matter how much the latter struggled today, the end result would not change at all. Even Nirvana stage practitioners could not escape from this formation. Furthermore, with the addition of Lei Shi in this battle, even if Lin Dong was stronger, he would be hard-pressed to escape his demise. Let me see how you can get out of this today. Boom. As Chen Mu gnashed his teeth, the two figures suddenly bounced apart, each one landing in the sea of trees, ripping a gigantic crevice through the lush woodlands in the process. Bastard, you are indeed quite capable. Lei Shi jerked his body, dispersing the remnant energy within. He raised his head towards the figure, who was not too far away, while his eyes were surging with amazement and seriousness. Given his current strength, ordinary Nirvana stage practitioners would not have lasted 10 rounds in a fight with him, yet Lin Dong had relied on his powerful mental energy alone to battle Lei Shi till this point. How could this not amaze him? Lin Dong deeply exhaled as devouring force spread out in his body and swiftly devoured the damaging force rampaging inside. He lowered his head and glanced at his devouring armor, noticing a few tiny cracks on it. His ability to face Lei Shi head-on was completely due to this devouring armor. Without it, Lin Dong's inner organs would have been crushed. After all, Lei Shi was indeed quite formidable. His eyes twinkling a little, Lin Dong lifted his head and looked ineffably at the slowly extending glowing net. He knew that Lei Shi was merely trying to stall him in order to give Chen Mu and his counterparts more time to complete the formation. Since the formation had now been completed, perhaps their next move would be to kill him. My Devil Cliff Empire focuses on the results, not the process. We have no problem ganging up on someone with superior numbers on our side. Lei Shi chuckled sinisterly when he saw Lin Dong notice the glowing net in the sky. You are indeed a genius. If those events in the past hadn't happened, I might recruit you into my Devil Cliff Empire. It is such a pity. Lei Shi seemed to felt a tinge of regret. Soon after, he smiled again and raised his palm before he casually said, "Do it." As Lei Shi finished his sentence, the eyes of Chen Mu and his counterparts became somber out of sudden while a sneer flashed across their faces. Their hand seals transformed and the enormous glowing net began to flicker immediately. As the glowing net flicked, numerous light rays shot out from within and ripped apart the air with a terrifying speed. Then, the light rays came down and trapped Lin Dong tightly before he could escape. After the light rays bound Lin Dong, they began to flicker again. This time around, the light rays materialized into a huge glowing spear and blasted towards Lin Dong ruthlessly. It's over. Upon seeing Lin Dong being rendered immobile, Lei Shi muttered to himself while the corner of his mouth curled slightly. The glowing spear ripped through the sky and was accompanied by a palpitating energy wave. In a blink of an eye, it appeared 30 feet before Lin Dong. Due to the powerful shock wave from the glowing spear, Lin Dong's devouring armor began to tremble continuously. It must have sensed the deadly incoming attack. Lin Dong's eyes locked onto the glowing spear. Instead of containing fear, his eyes contained a tinge of cockiness. Then a black hole started to form and expand in front of his body with a lightning speed. The incoming glowing spear went straight into the black hole. Indistinctly, a frantic explosion could be heard from within the black hole. Eventually, the sound disappeared along with the black hole. The unforeseen event froze the smiles on Lei Shi and his counterparts' faces. Then, their facial expressions became increasingly cold. I have already said that I have waited a long time for all of you. Under the cold gazes from Lei Shi and his counterparts, Lin Dong raised his head and gave them an indifferent smile. Upon seeing Lin Dong's smile, for some reasons, Lei Shi's heart unexpectedly sank. After finishing his sentence, Lin Dong did not open his mouth anymore. His body trembled slightly, and the devouring power began to extend from it silently. The light rays that bound Lin Dong's body melted rapidly, as if they were snow that had encountered heat. No matter what tricks you have up your sleeves, do you really think that you alone can stop 2 Nirvana stage and 8 quasi-Nirvana stage practitioners' encirclement? Lei Shi yelled with a ghastly tone. This kind of formation was enough to kill any Nirvana stage practitioner, even if Lin Dong possessed the bloody soul puppet and the status of Heaven Symbol Master, he still would not be qualified to stop this formation. Lin Dong loosened his wrists and flashed a mocking smile at Lei Shi. Soon after, his eyes began to surge with strains of chilliness. Since you have come to hunt me down, you should have planned for the worst scenario. That is because you might lose your lives in the mission this time around. Just by you alone. Chen Mu cackled nastily. Just me alone. Lin Dong nodded his head seriously. Soon after, his hands suddenly performed a hand seal. At the same time, in the stone talisman, the long-awaiting little Martin gave a weird chuckle, and its claws performed a hand seal that was similar to Lin Dong's. Boom. As Lin Dong and little Martin performed a similar hand seal at the same time, the lush woodlands suddenly began to waver. After a short moment, the lush woodlands was torn apart and a canopy of darkness shot up into the sky. Within a short period of time, the canopy formed a space of darkness and began to engulf the glowing web formation. The sudden change in situation changed the facial expressions of Lei Shi and his counterparts. As they continued looking at the space of darkness that was engulfing their glowing web, a wave of chilliness gushed through their minds. It seemed that the space of darkness could even destroy light. Kill him. Lei Shi bellowed as he quickly returned to a state of calmness and his eyes ashened. No matter what tactics Lin Dong executed, as long as he was killed, all these weird happenings would cease to occur. Upon hearing Lei Shi's voice, Chen Mu and his counterparts returned to their sense. Immediately, their hand seals changed and the glowing web began to coagulate again. Numerous glowing spears were formed in the process. However, this time around, after the glowing spears were formed, they were being pulled abruptly and then vanished into the thin air under the shocking gazes from Chen Mu and his counterparts. Darn. Our formation is vanishing. After Chen Mu and his counterparts saw what had happened, they shouted in astonishment as if they had sensed something. Upon hearing what was said, Lei Shi's facial expression changed drastically. Indeed, the glowing web was diminishing with a speed that could be observed with a naked eye. It was as if the glowing web was losing energy rapidly. Maintain the formation. Lei Shi's eyes were flickering. Soon after, he clenched his teeth and palms, before a black-colored soft sword appeared in his hand. Then, he moved his body and flew towards Lin Dong. This time around, he had pushed the Yuan power in his body to its maximum. Clearly, he did not want to give Lin Dong any time to do something funny. This is my devouring world. There is nowhere to run. Even when he saw an incoming Lei Shi, who was accompanied by a terrifying outburst of energy, Lin Dong merely smiled. With a jolt of his body, Lin Dong oddly escaped from the glowing net and disappeared into the deep darkness. After Lei Shi saw Lin Dong disappeared, the former's face ashened immediately. He tried to look around in the extreme darkness, while the tinge of chilliness that was creeping in his mind was getting increasingly stronger. Senior Lei Shi, the Yuan power in our bodies are dissipating rapidly. This place is stealing our Yuan power. While Lei Shi was at a loss, those Devil Cliff Empire practitioners shouted out in fear. While these people were in shock, Lei Shi's face was twitching. That was because he knew that the Yuan power in his body was dissipating slowly as well. Apparently, this place of darkness was devouring the Yuan power in their bodies. Goddammit. At this moment, even the cool-headed Lei Shi could not help but break out in rage. He then snarled, "Lin Dong, come out and fight with me, you coward." I'm sorry. The way I do things is that I only care about the end results, rather than the process. Suddenly, a mocking voice came from the abyss of the darkness. Lei Shi's eyes hardened and hurled a brutal punch in the direction of the source of the voice. However, there was no response or reaction. Senior Lei Shi, the formation is about to break. A gush of fear swept across Chen Mu's eyes. He then looked at the slowly weakening glowing net. This was their only source of light now. Even when Lei Shi heard Chen Mu's words, the former continued clenching his fists. He had no ways to break out of this world of darkness. Right now, they could only wait helplessly for the Yuan power in their bodies to dissipate. When their Yuan power were completely exhausted, they would not have the strength to resist Lin Dong. Under the dreadful gazes from Lei Shi and his counterparts, the glowing net got increasingly weaker and eventually disappeared. Finally, this place had descended into complete darkness. Above the lush woodlands, a humongous, square-shaped canopy of darkness had engulfed the mid-air. Even the light was devoured by the darkness. Outside of the square-shaped canopy of darkness, Lin Dong was standing on a lofty tree, while keeping his eyes closed and waiting for the time to pass slowly. Finally, the positions of the prey and predator had been swapped perfectly. This video will end here.